afternoon. We'll get started. Hope everybody's doing well. Appreciate everybody that's able to join us. Obviously joining us. Also appreciate having some of our school board members here. Obviously because of some of our restrictions, limitations, not everybody's able to join us. But Tiffany Robinson is here, as well as Michelle Hill and Tucker McClendon as well.
Could you turn the mic on? It's on the bottom. Sorry.
Testing?
Okay.
Yeah, all right, good. So appreciate them joining us here this morning. Obviously, it's been a very interesting and unique moment in time. I think everybody's dealing with this unprecedented moment, and the way in which we deal with this moment is extremely important. But as we deal with this moment, we think it's also important to really elevate the work that's taking place across our system, the work that our teachers and our leaders and our support staff have done. It's been so well documented, but whether it's been a school nutrition worker that's packing lunches, or seeing our bus drivers who stood up so many miles to help us get food to kids, and community members and community organizations that came alongside us. It really is remarkable the way this community has responded. And in addition to that, if COVID-19 wasn't enough, God has an interesting way of sending storms and tornadoes. And so we got our taste of a tornado that has definitely impacted our community directly. And East Brainerd and Tucker McClendon's district, and those teachers and families that are dealing with that as well. But I want to take just a moment to again speak to the work of our teachers. You can see here Coach Wood. If you hadn't seen, he's the PE guy. He even had me active over the last few weeks, and I need a little more activity. As I put a jacket on today, I realized that the cleaners is shrinking my clothes, and that's not the case. But definitely work to be done, and appreciate the work that our teachers have done in that regard. Ms. Nikki Russell, STEM Teacher of the Year, and we're very proud of really the STEM work that's happening across our district. In fact, earlier this week or late last week, it was announced that 5 of the 22 schools in the state that received STEM designation came from right here in Hamilton County Schools, and it's the most STEM designated schools of any district in the state. And we also learned on yesterday that in addition to that, the governor will be giving each of those schools $10,000 to continue STEM work. And so we're very, very excited about what's taking place. We also, really don't minimize and don't want to miss the importance of this moment in regards to our seniors. And so, having been a senior, what seems to be many, many moons ago, this is a special moment in time for them. And we are heartbroken that obviously COVID-19 has had adverse impacts on what they'll have the opportunity to experience or may have anticipated experiencing. But we're committed to doing everything possible to ensuring that we can celebrate them and continue to celebrate them as much as we possibly can. You can see us highlighting here just a few. Maggie Wilson, who's advanced student at CCA to the finalist round for the Presidential Scholarship. Abdullah's actually on the Superintendent Student Advisory Council, a very intriguing young man on the way to the College of Charleston, and a foreign exchange student that, again, Hamilton County gets to see so many unique and diverse students, and we're very, very proud of each of them. And then Miss Abigail Wooten, who will be going or has been accepted into the Navy nuclear program and going to be specializing in, catch this, submarine technology. Just again, a testament to our students. And Jordan Morris, who's a senior at CSAS, 4.0 going to UTK, and he's going to pursue aeronautical engineering. And then I think our last highlight, Micah Ireland, who is a senior graduating from Red Bank High, going to UT Knoxville. And whenever they play football, because at some point they will, he'll be in the band. And so very, very proud of our students and our seniors in particular, and want to just take a moment on the stage to highlight them. Really the purpose of this conversation is to to elevate the complexity of what August will bring. COVID-19, by all accounts, has really, in large part, taken us, I won't say necessarily by surprise, but has really caused us all to have to step back and to reevaluate the work that we do. And we anticipate August being no different for not just our school system, but for school systems across the state. We have the privilege of being a part of many networks here at the state level. Our Southeast Core Office is establishing an academic task force. We also have the privilege of being a part and being recognized candidly by national partners and having their partnership as we think through what the next steps will be. And again, partnership from throughout the community. But make no mistake that as we step into August, we have recognized the magnitude of what the challenges we'll be undertaking. We have leveraged and will continue to leverage this slide that you see and that's around the room, the McKinsey report, but there's several other reports that you can find that speak to some of what should be considered as school systems begin to think about the reentry, the reopening of school. And what really has hit us as we looked at closing out our school year over the past couple of weeks is, frankly, how daunting a task it will be and all the nuances and intricacies that should be under consideration for a district of our size, and how we should be planning strategically for the safe reentry and reopening of our district. Let me share that this is by no means a claim that in August everybody's coming back and life is going to be fine. What it is, we stand here today, is committed to thinking very intentionally, not just as the superintendent of this school district, but also as a parent of a child in this district, to thinking very intentionally about what it is we need to do to make sure that once we open our doors, our students are safe. I also believe that as the superintendent, the reality is I don't know everything, and I don't ascribe to know everything, and it's important to surround yourself with talented people. It's important to surround yourself with people that have a ton of expertise. And we have the great fortune of having many people on our team that bring a ton of expertise. But I've tapped two gentlemen that have a vast array of not just credentials, but life experience that will head up and co-chair our reopening task force as we think about all the different elements that we need to be considered. So let me tell you a little bit about these two gentlemen to my left. Mr. Keith Fogelman has served as our Chief Talent Officer over the past couple of years, and I'm going to read because I normally don't read when I'm talking to people, but both these guys' resumes are so significant that I want to give them their just due. So he's an experienced human resource leader, strategic business partner. When we looked at an HR leader, what we really thought about was somebody that brought just not school level expertise, but also brought a level of experience from the business world and from the professional world. He's led and been an executive human resource consultant in the United States and Japan. His projects included providing programmatic direction to support recovery plans from the 2011 earthquake and tsunami in Japan. Okay, so I want to give context here, experience, right? He's led recovery plans for the 2011 earthquake and tsunami in Japan. Implementing a knowledge transfer and retention of strategy for the nuclear utility, developing HR strategies for nuclear plant decommissioning projects, and designing and demobilization strategy for a nuclear construction project. Mr. Fogelman was also the Vice President of HR for Entergy until 2013, where he was responsible for providing strategic human resource and labor relations solutions for a multi-state Fortune 500 company with 10 business units and 14,500 employees. Before coming to Entergy, he's held several leadership positions at TVA, and he's the former chairman and executive committee member of the Nuclear Human Resource Group and a member of the Society of Human Resource Management, bachelor's of Science in Industrial Technology, Construction and Civil Engineering Technology from ETSU, and he's completed Chief Human Resource Officer Academy conducted by the National Academy of Human Resources. So first gentleman to my left is Mr. Keith Fogelman. He will be one of the co-chairs of our task force. The second co-chair is Lieutenant Colonel retired William T. Brooks. He's from right here in Chattanooga. He currently serves as our DAI, our Director of Army Instruction, over all of our JRTC programs here in Hamilton County. He served as a senior Army instructor at Chattanooga Central High School, a professor of military science at Grambling State University, with a partnership with Louisiana Tech and the University of Louisiana Monroe. He served as a staff member for the Combined Arms and Services Staff School in Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, and the Command Group Executive Officer, Battalion Executive Officer, and Group Logistics Chief at Fort Polk, Louisiana. Lieutenant Colonel Brooks also has served in the Special Operations Command at Fort Bragg, where he held positions with the 3rd Special Forces, Special Operations Support Command, and the 4th Psychological Operations Group. He commanded Company D, 3rd Brigade Infantry, and later commanded the headquarters for Company 4 Training Brigade at Fort Jackson, South Carolina. He's also held assignments literally across the world in Kuwait, Bosnia, Hawaii, Virginia, and Indiana. He is a graduate of Chattanooga High School, 1979, and he attended MTSU, a Bachelor's of Science degree. I heard a little bit about he was a really good tennis player too, right? Okay, all right. So after graduation, he went on and active duty into second lieutenant, and on and on. I'll just read a little bit about his awards. He's won the Joint Service Commendation Medal and the Army Commendation Medal and the Joint Service Achievement Medal, the Army Achievement Medal, the National Defense Service Medal, the Southwest Asia Service Medal and Bronze Star, the Global War on Terror Service Medal, and the Army Service Ribbon, the Overseas Service Medal, the NATO Medal. I could go on, but these two gentlemen, I'm excited to have co-chairing this work and working alongside our senior leadership team, and then also working with our school board as we look at the safe reentry and reopening of Hamilton County Schools. So at this time, I will turn it over to Mr. Fogelman and Lieutenant Colonel Brooks to kind of take you through some of the goals of the task force.
I'm going to take this off. Okay. Thank you very much, and thank you for having us here today. Mr. Fogelman and I were given the task to stand up to get our students, our faculty, our teachers back in brick and mortar. Our task is to reopen Hamilton County schools, and we have some focuses. Yes, we've looked at the McKinsey report and other resources, but we've got a lot of work ahead of us. We've already identified 4 areas that we want to concentrate on because at the front, we want to minimize the risk to the public health. So before we bring any proposal for decision-making to Superintendent Johnson, we want to make sure that whatever courses of action that we present, that they are presented with the idea that student, teachers, and faculty and employee health is at the foremost. It's very important to us. Not just to rush back to school, but to make sure that we are concentrating and making sure that our community is safe, and I think that's important. We also are going to capitalize and understand that there are situations where we're going to make sure that we mitigate risk for teachers and students who may have underlying health issues, heart issues, chemo, and things of that nature. And one of the things that we know is that our work ahead of us will include a lot of people. We plan on working very closely with the state and the county health department, as well as the guidance and the resources available through our CDC. We are gonna, as we go through our planning, we're going to look very hard at addressing impact on student learning, because reopening our schools is really about getting our students back into engaging and learning. And so that is, our number one goal is still academics, with the idea that we're going to make sure that we do it in a safe, smart, and a healthy environment. So we're going to, because we feel that we're going to have several courses of action to provide the superintendent, we realize that we're going to take advantage of some of the things that we captured from being at home, from virtual learning. So we're going to look at some of the skill gaps. We're going to take in consideration who has internet, who doesn't have internet. We're going to take in consideration student learning styles. You know, when you're at home doing visual curriculum, it can be very difficult, which leads us to social, emotional support. We want to make sure that when we're back in school, when we're opening up schools, we're able to provide those students with the counselors and the social workers and some of the things that just don't take place at home, watching your teacher from a monitor. So again, we've got a lot of work ahead of us. We're going to have a lot of other people helping us in this effort to reopen schools here in Hamilton County. And my co-worker, my co-chairman on the task force will cover the last two bullets, Mr. Keith Fogelman. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel Brooks. First of all, let me just say it's first of all, an honor to be selected to be a co-chair of this task force. Really an opportunity. Colonel Brooks and I have interacted since I've been here for the last couple of years, but it's really an opportunity for me just to interact with him and take advantage of all the knowledge and background that he's going to bring to the table. So really looking forward to that opportunity. As we talked about it, as we really kind of kicked this off and started thinking about it, and we established priorities are, from some of my previous backgrounds, kind of what are our guiding principles as we think about this project. And Colonel Brooks covered the first two, but one of the things that we've learned over the course of the last 2 months is just really how important our schools are to the community. We appreciated that going forward, but we also understand that, our schools provide safety, stability. We feed students, and we've continued to do that. And, one of the things we believe is that there's lessons learned from this last 2 months that we can utilize as we move forward with a plan for reopening schools. The other piece of the business that we'll need to focus on is operational readiness. And when you think about operational readiness, it's 2 or 3 things it's really one really key important thing. And that is that we really have effective health and safety measures in place as we move forward. Because as Colonel Brooks says, it's about protecting our students, our employees, our support staff, our parents, and being able to be sure that our community can trust us that we're going to be doing the right things to support our students, our staff. But we also need to be prepared to ensure that, as we go forward, what types of infrastructure needs are we going to need. That could be a pretty simple fix in some cases, but we need to understand what those look like and how, as a school district, we're going to need to be able to react to that. Obviously, we've had some, over the course of the last month, really, discussions about our budget, and we recognize as we move forward, and we need to be prepared and understand what potential challenges could be facing us as we go through a reopening. So really planning for that, also planning for our supply chain to be able to support our mitigation needs and strategies as we move forward. I don't think it's any secret that these are a pretty valuable commodity. So as we move forward, how are we going to be able to, we need our supply chain to work for us. And then really thinking about what types of policies that we need to build, what types, and as we think about policies, what we're really talking about is building a culture of reopening so that we can do it safely and effectively as we try to bring our students and staff back in on board.
Thank you, Colonel Brooks and Mr. Fogelman. The last thing I'll put up is this visual, and then we'll open the floor to questions. And so again, this comes from the McKinsey report. This isn't ours, but we foresee. I know that she's not in here, but another member of our team, Jen Bronson, who has led a lot of our student success planning work, will essentially we look to come out of this with a product that we can clearly articulate to the community and parents and such what to expect or to anticipate. Right. So this is an example. And again, we look to get quite a bit more granular than this example is, but it shows, for instance, we're in stage one, and in stage one or phase one, you may have a strong sense of normalcy in regards to what's transpiring. And something you don't see here that we'll be looking at are what are the triggers, so to speak, for us to move to a phase two. What are the amount of cases? What are what's happening within our community that may trigger us to go to phase two? And what does phase two consist of? And then to phase three, what does phase three consist of? And so we'll be working collaboratively with our health officials, and also see back in the back was checking our temperature as we came in, Ms. Cheryl Fletcher, who has been our medical lead and really our connection and conduit with the health department. I anticipate the health department being directly involved in this, but we want to create and develop a really clear and as succinct as possible way in which we plan to operate our schools. And our thought with this is, there's so much unknown. We want to be prepared for the most challenging situation and just hope that the most challenging situation doesn't come. But we want to have plans in place for the most challenging of situations. And so this is kind of the thought, and this is where we are as a system. And we think it's really important to get this information in the public to let them know kind of what we're doing behind the scenes to prepare for not just August, but the beyond. So with that, I'll open to any questions that may exist.
Can you explain how you plan on, in detail, how you plan on managing the high risk and immune compromised teachers and students? You plan on continuing that virtual learning too?
Yeah. So when you ask in detail, I think one of the impetus for us developing this team is so that we can have very specific details around what it is we look to do. So we look at it in two forms. One is students, and the second is employees and personnel and staff. We know that we have fragile students. We have parents that are concerned about sending their students to school in August as we currently stand, and so we are actively standing up additional virtual offerings, and more information will be forthcoming on that as we have members of our team involved in that work. We are also really digging into, how do we support our employees that are in that high risk area, and it could be that those high risk employees are supporting our students and parents that are really opting for a more virtual type of experience. And so any number of things are on the table, and frankly, those are all the kind of questions and considerations that we'll spend a lot of time really deeply engaging and understanding the community. Here's something I want to share and we commit to in regards to the development of this. We're not going to develop something unto this community. We're going to understand what are the priorities of our teachers. Obviously, our school board is driving it. What are the desires of parents? We want to understand that really deeply, so that once we build a plan, a set of strategies, everybody kind of understands how we want to operate. So just know that the high risk, not just employees, but also students, because honestly, I just got off the phone with teachers in one of our learning communities, about 150 teachers on the phone, and we just open it up and let them ask questions. And one of the teachers happened to be a special ed teacher, and her concern was for a special ed population that's extremely fragile. And so, we've got to have considerations in place for those types of situations. And so all of that comes into the fold so that we can come up with the best strategy possible to support everybody.
So in terms of, as you said, wanting parents to know what to expect as kids start to prepare to go back to school in August, has there been discussion with regard to what that will look like, what the image of kids going into the doors the first day of school will look like in terms of those temperature checks? Will people be wearing masks? I understand, we're going to have to wait and see what happens elsewhere, but is in terms of those discussions of details of those types of protocol or protections been outlined yet?
Yeah, so I think some of that is what will come out of this, right? So what we know is that August will look different in some shape, form, or fashion. What we don't know is where, and I think what we want to understand and what we want to hear from parents is what's their comfort level, where are they? We want to hear from obviously community members. One of the things I shared with a group a few days ago is the fact that we understand the school system in large part we're the heartbeat of the community, and that we don't just impact ourselves, we impact employers across this county. And so, it'll be important for us to involve business and industry in this conversation, and what does it look like, and hey, be prepared for thing X, Y, or Z, because make no mistake, safety is our top priority. And so if it's unsafe for kids to come back on August 12th, we'll make the recommendation to the board. It just can't happen, So there are a lot of unknowns that exist, but we want to prepare as though things are there. I will share that we are looking not just nationally, but we're also looking here in our local community. So, for instance, I had a phone conversation with the CEO of the YMCA on last Friday to help facilitate a conversation with our COO and their COO, which happened today. And that conversation was specifically about their child care and what because they've been standing up child care over the last couple of months. What have they learned? What are those lessons as we look at standing something up here in the next couple of weeks? So we want to take a lot of information in and hope to make a very informed decision and recommendation and phased approach. You're welcome.
I just want to make sure I understand the McKinsey slides.
Yes.
So you guys are using the two blue slides as like recommendations and then seeing if they meet those 4 areas that you guys highlighted?
Yes.
Is that correct?
So let me be abundantly clear. These are examples, all right? The McKinsey report is one of many that we're leveraging to gain insight from national, state, and regional communities. I was on the phone with superintendents and it was convened by SCORE of Shelby County and Metro Nashville a few days ago, and we were talking through, what are some ways in which we might look at some of these things, from everything from learning to the operational side of the house to, there's just a lot to be considered. Busing students. I mean, our buses carry 66 kids, and they're shoulder to shoulder, from a social distancing standpoint, how are we going to operate our buses? All these are conversations that we're having. Are we going to have to build more routes? Are we going to have to reduce the number of students on there? Or are students going to be temperature checked when they go in? Is everybody going to have to wear a mask? So every single thing has a ton of tentacles that go a bunch of different places. What do we do for the bus drivers? Are we checking them before they get on? And so we're using the McKinsey report, but there's several other reports that are out there as points of consideration for us, so that we can make informed decisions and recommendations. Does that I hope it answers your question? Don't get too attached to that. Those are really just visuals to kind of give some conceptualization of what we're thinking.
You said 22 schools in the state are STEM designated, and 5 of those schools are Hamilton County. How has the virtual experience affected the academic quality? And if you, for some reason, cannot go back to being in a brick and mortar school, how will continuing the virtual dynamic affect and impact the academic quality?
Yeah. Great question. I love how you connected all that there. It was outstanding. So I share this. Like, this is a moment for public education that honestly, as there's a ton of negative implications from the standpoint of COVID-19, right? It's no secret what it can do and has done probably to our economy. It's no secret what it's done to, my gosh, individuals and families and households. There's absolutely no secret to those pieces. From an academic standpoint, there's no secret how it's impacted operations and lunch and, buses and all that stuff. But what it has done is it's forced systems to think differently about how we deliver, education. And candidly, I think in so many regards, so many systems across the country will be transformed forever, and we will be one of those. And so we want to lead in everything that we do. We also want to lead thoughtfully and try to understand, what the impact was. So, for instance, tomorrow, our senior leadership team has an after-action review, and we'll after-action review what we did over the last couple of months and what went really well and where maybe could we have been better. And so we want to learn from what we've done. But I think that online learning, virtual learning, blended learning, the usage of technology, making sure, a big conversation that our community has to have is we got to have the conversation about Wi-Fi access. Every student, we need every student to have Wi-Fi access. What does that mean? What are the implications from a budgetary standpoint in that regard? We're in a place right now where every student needs access to a device. We're very fortunate, and we're very fortunate that in grades 6 through 12 we were 1-to-1, and we could deploy more devices in grades K through 5. But we've got to make an investment in even more devices for our students in grades K through 5. We've got to make sure they have Wi-Fi access. And so, since you got a timer on me, I'll stop talking. I'm just messing with you. I'm just messing with you.
Anticipate if students do physically return in August to campuses, there being options for parents to continue with virtual learning for all grades if they don't feel comfortable. Like, do you anticipate maybe developing a plan like that where parents can opt in or opt out of brick and mortar?
Absolutely. Yes. Megan, you get a one-word answer. Yes. So I give a little more. Yes. And the reason why is because I've got a handful of emails, from parents that say, hey, and they most of them have been very complimentary. Like, all the stuff y'all done has been great. Like, man, it's awesome. I am really concerned about my child returning in August. And so I put on my superintendent hat and I say, man, we're gonna do all we can. Like, trust us. But then I put on my parent hat and I say, okay, I want to feel what you're feeling, and I understand and I respect where it is you're coming from. And so we have a level of obligation to provide as many options as we possibly can. And so that is something that we are actively, literally right now, digging into what our current virtual options are, how robust they are, and how might we make them even more robust across grade bands. And that is absolutely something that we are exploring and digging into.
They're somewhat unrelated. The first one is this being a highly collaborative process that you said that you would like it to be, both with the task force and wanting to hear from parents and what they are comfortable with and what their ideas are. Will there be a way that is an official setup of ways parents can contribute their ideas, whether it's a website or an email address or something? How can parents or people in the community provide their insight or ask their questions?
Absolutely. Yeah, there'll be multiple structured modalities in which parents can share information with us, and so there will be a web page set up, but there will also be surveys. We have the benefit. I spoke earlier to some national partnership. We were one of a very, very few school districts in the country that's going to have the benefit of having some technical support around specifically parental engagement in COVID-19, and so there'll be focus groups virtually. We also anticipate us standing up some parent Zoom calls. That's what we've done internally, where we've just allowed our teachers to get on, and no slides. Here's the chat box. Put your questions in, and let's try to answer all the questions that we can. And so we anticipate some of those things. So as these gentlemen get going, there'll be much more to come in regards to the multiple ways in which we want to hear and will hear from the community.
Can you, or either one of the gentlemen, Lieutenant Colonel Brooks or Mr. Fogelman, explain, like in one or two sentences, what your individual roles are, like what you're focusing on? If it is divided, like Mr. Fogelman is focusing on this, Lieutenant Colonel Brooks is focusing on this, just to summarize.
So I'll give you 4 bullets, and they're collaborative, and they can speak to it as well. But those 4 areas that are blue with the sub bullets up under it, those 4 areas are the areas, right? And so we want to make sure that the risks to public health are addressed, right? That's number 1. Then we're looking at the learning environment. We're looking at the engagement and the importance of community, schools within the community. And then lastly, obviously, the operational piece. And so they'll look at it across all 4 of them. Y'all want to, Keith or Colonel?
At this stage, we haven't really formally broken up the project, but the one thing that we have done, I say formally, but we have informally, as we've worked together now since Friday. Friday, Saturday, and yesterday. And so what has naturally occurred is we've identified each other's strengths. And as we've worked through it, we've kind of started to take on different assignments based on what our expertise or our backgrounds or our strengths are. So, and I would anticipate that early on, that's the way it's going to look. But as we pull more people onto the task force, we involve more people, then we'll get a more structured breakdown of how we proceed going forward. Anything you want to add?
Well, I'll just simply add that as we go through the process and the planning, we'll go back to the superintendent for additional guidance. We'll go back and make sure that we're on track for his intent, to make sure that we don't get into an agenda or go in a direction. We're going to stay focused on the task at hand, and that's to reopen the schools.
Is there kind of a deadline or a date that you're looking to have a plan so that everyone can kind of all be on the same page as to what to expect for August?
Yeah. So, we've got a soft target of end of June, early July. And I say soft because COVID-19 is very fluid, right? And so we've kind of set a timeline. And the reason we said the end of June, early July is because that gives our schools and parents, everybody, a month to wrap their minds around what the implications are of this. Look, if there are implications for our schools and how they open and operate, we understand that parents either have to figure out their work situation or childcare. We understand that, if we're in an online environment, the teacher preparation looks different. Our cafeteria operation looks different, and so all of it looks different. So we want to give ourselves plenty of lead time. We're not beholden to that time frame, though, and the reason I say that is because it is extremely fluid. What we will do is we'll set up a regular cadence to share where we are so that the public really understands kind of what's out there for consideration and what areas can we get feedback on or what are concerns for you. And so it won't be a surprise. This isn't something that's going underground for, a couple of months and then going to pop back up in June, late June or early July with, here goes. It's going to be a step by step all the way, but we've set a target of end of June, early July.
What are plans looking like for those? I'm assuming that it's entirely still online based or what's in the works?
Yeah. Vast majority is. So how we're looking at it is June. A lot of it will be online based. We're very hopeful that in July, in a controlled way, we can maybe begin to do some level of hybrid face-to-face and online. And there's also some potential strong benefit there for us from an operational standpoint to have some lessons learned as we step into a more broad opening of the district. And so that's our goal. Again, not beholden to that because, frankly, as testing has picked up, obviously cases have picked up, and not until we come back down are we going to be in a more comfortable spot.
You're already doing at schools and school-related events. I know I've been to some where I've seen them hand out gloves, take temperatures. Whether it's the staff that's meeting Absolutely. Or you guys might be already planning for July.
Yeah. So, just internally, so our schools will get to a point where they're here in the next week or two, where they're pretty offline here for a bit. But what we've done up until this point, or taking temperatures, making sure people have the mask, making sure people have gloves, trying to be mindful of distancing, all the things the CDC has shared. I had the opportunity to be out at Hickson last week as they were handing out diplomas, and they had not diplomas, but handing out graduation and senior stuff and taking care of all the seniors' needs. And they had students stay in their cars, and we're doing a really good job of trying to, as much as possible, mitigate, against the spread, and which is really important. And so those types of things will continue. We're having conversation right now about, as we begin to enter into, the summer and beyond, what additional, as Keith mentioned, some of the resources and things we'll need, whether it's as simple as, if I were in the Lysol wipe business right now, I wouldn't be in this room. I'd be on my own beach. But like, you have to start now, and we've started now. Cheryl Fletcher, her head's back in the back. She's already, we've been actively ordering masks for employees, just, because you've got to have enough lead time to begin to get some of these things. And so, we're working through all of that. We call it fogging. It's hydrostatic misting, I think it's called, is the technical term. But we are looking at the acquisition of more hydrostatic misters so that we can fog our campuses on a more regular basis and having more conversation about that. So again, we're trying to look at all layers of this and really digging in to make sure that we're as prepared as possible, however things land.
On the conversation of web access and having everybody having the web access, how deep are those conversations? Have you reached out to any organizations? Is there a program in place? Is EPB, like, how far have you gone into those conversations?
Yeah, so I talked to CEO of VPB on Friday, and we talked again on yesterday, and so we continue to converse. Face to face, but socially distanced. I was at his office. But yeah, so we have great partners. I want to give a little more context here. We have great partners that have already done, and let me say this, we have great business partners, community partners that have already done a lot to get us Wi-Fi access points stood up this summer. So EPB and several other community partners stood up over 25 wireless access sites just this past, the past couple of months. What we've been talking about is a short-term summer solution, but also a long-term solution. And so as things move more to an online environment, it just needs to become a non-negotiable that everybody has access, and that's our conversation. If there are no other questions, normally as a teacher I allow a lot of wait time, but with the media we don't. So thank y'all seriously very much for coming out. Again, we think it's very important to be transparent. We don't know all the answers. We don't know, but I want you all to know, and we want the public to know, that we're absolutely working. And candidly speaking, we defer to expertise, and these two gentlemen that will be chairing this and working in concert, myself and our school board, they bring a wealth of knowledge, experience, and expertise. And as a parent, not as a superintendent, it gives me great comfort to know that we've got this level of expertise helping us think through all the different elements of it. So thank y'all very, very much.